Start recording. Stop recording. Speech off.
Hello guys, I'm going to be eating while I'm doing this video. Got some candy right here that I'm going to be eating, so pardon me if I sound kind of weird. So, it's almost a guarantee that I'm getting an iPod Touch 4th generation. Almost a guarantee. Almost. So, you got some things to note about it after eating a couple more gummy snacks. You think people have been eating on YouTube? One more shouldn't hurt. Okay, on to what I was going to discuss. So, I got a couple things to say about the iPod Touch 4th generation. Number one, it's going to be older. Of course, because it was made in 2009 or 2010. Let's see. So, it will have the slide to unlock feature when you're on the lock screen. It will not have the Touch ID like phones from the iPhone 8 and older. iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, iPhone 8 Plus, iPhone 8, iPhone 7 Plus, iPhone 7. Was the 7S? I don't know. iPhone 6S Plus or whatever. Then the iPhone 6S or whatever. You get it. So the iPhone, the iPhone 6 and all the way to the iPhone 8 Plus, they didn't have, they had the Touch ID. But on the iPhone, hold on, I'm talking about the iPhone. iPod. Okay, so, I don't know if the 5th, but I'm pretty sure the 6th generation iPod Touch had the Touch ID. iPod Touch 4th generation won't have it. iPod Touch 5th generation, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure it won't. So, you may be wondering why I need an iPod Touch. Well, I'm going to do something other than Bop It. Like, how would you guys feel if I did a Bop It video every single day? Which that's what I've done for the past month. Well, not all the time, but it would seem like I did a bunch of Bop It videos. Now, I'm going to do a video on the iPod Touch. Probably next Wednesday or Thursday, or maybe even Friday. I don't know. I just hope I get a decent enough iPod iPod Touch 4th generation. You see, iPod Touch 4. Why don't we just say the 4th generation iPod Touch? Now, who came up with the iPod anyway? Well, our friends at Apple did. What I mean by friends is excuse me. Oh my gosh, what did I just do? Oh my gosh, what did I just do? The people over at Apple made the iPod. It's a digital music player. It originally started out as a digital music player with buttons. It's like an MP3 player. But the original iPod started way back in 2001, about 17 or 18 years ago. And I've never seen the original iPod. But I do have an older iPod, which I did do a review on. But this time when I do the iPod Touch, I will be able to do more than just kind of play a little bit of a song on an iPod. But the iPod Touch can do more than just music. It's advanced enough that you can just go on the web and do your stuff. It may not have a phone feature, but it does have contacts, I think. From what I've heard, I think it does. So, I think iPods are done. I think they quit with iPods. And I'm gonna go back and get me snacks and just delay this. I'm gonna turn this a little bit. Kind of. It's kind of open. Yeah. If all I can do is just try to close it, I will. But anyways, I don't want to leave ants in here, so I'm going to eat these at the end of the video, so. Yeah. Well, there are two reasons why I want an iPod Touch. One, I've already stated. And two, there are some apps that I might want to look at. Like, say, the Bop It app. The Bop It app was made by a company called Electronic Arts. And what I'm assuming is that they make games. Bop It was one of them. You see, well, Hasbro had the license for Bop It. Then it was 9606 for 15 years. Then it was 15 years. Now it's over 20, like 23 years. So, do the math. 23 minus 15. If you don't know, that's 8. So, that was 8 years ago. So, that app was discontinued on the App Store. But I've heard on a video that you can get older apps on the older App Store. Now, I've looked at an iPad, which this is kind of off topic, but I looked at an older iPad running iOS 9.35. What generation iPad stopped with the update iOS 9.3.5? Do any of you guys know? Because I don't. Is it the iPad second generation or the third? It's gotta be the second or something. Wait a minute. It's got to be the third or fourth generation. I don't know. But, I looked on the App Store, but it was, surprisingly, they're the same stuff as on a modern iPhone or iPad running iOS 11 or 12. So, yeah, that's kind of strange. The same games on an iPad second and third edition that are on a modern iPhone or an iPad from 2016 or 17 or 18. So, The reason is because iOS 9.3.5 is a bit modern. And if you want to know, an iPad running that, it's not as up to date as the current iPads, but it is modern enough that you can get somewhat the latest version of YouTube or something, or I don't know. But on an iPod Touch from the the 4th generation, has older apps. So like, they'll probably have an older version of Facebook. Mind you, on the older version of YouTube, they still have the current videos. It's just not as advanced. So, let's say you sign into your account on the older YouTube on an iPod, and yet you notice it's the same videos on the modern YouTube app, but yet it's not as advanced as the modern YouTube app. And I will do comparisons when I get the iPod Touch. I'll do comparison with an iPad, a modern iPad, to that, which would be okay, so when I first downloaded YouTube, there were 4 different tabs: Home, Subscriptions, Library, and Account, I think. Or Subscriptions, I don't know. There were 4. When I first downloaded YouTube, there were 4 tabs. But now on YouTube, there is Home, Trending, Subscriptions, Inbox, and Library. So, on the older YouTube, I don't know what's going to be on there. But what I know is that it'll be the modern day videos that you'd see on YouTube. Because YouTube, the videos on YouTube don't change if it's an older app. If it's an older app, then that means it's not as advanced, yet it has the current videos on YouTube. Even though the iPod Touch 4th generation is running iOS 6.1.6 at the latest update for the iPod Touch 4th generation, or the iPhone 3GS in the iPhone's case, then you still get the modern day videos that you'd see on YouTube. I would think, because YouTube really doesn't change, okay? Even though you got maybe an older Safari or something. Now, another thing. Safari was different back then. I don't know how different, but I do remember looking at a 1st generation or 2nd generation iPad, and that had the slide to unlock feature. Lock screen comparisons. On a modern iOS device, you'd find the press home to unlock button, where you can either do Touch ID or use the passcode if you set it up right. On an older iOS device, you'd find the slide to unlock, which that would be something cool. But on like iOS 8 or 9, you'd find the unlock button if you didn't have a passcode set up. You can set up a passcode with 4 numbers, 6 numbers, or just, I don't know, something. Size comparison. A modern iOS device is bigger than the older and a little bit less advanced iOS devices. Home button differences. The differences between a physical home button And the home button on like an iPhone 7 or 8 or 10. Now, the iPhone 7 and 8, they had home buttons, but they were kind of made as part of the phone itself. So once the phone turned off, the home button wasn't even a button anymore. It was just locked. It was locked. It was like electronic or something. On a more older iOS device, like say the iPod Touch 4th generation or the iPhone 3GS, those had physical home buttons that you'd be able to press. Now, seeing how some iOS devices are used, you never know what the home buttons were like. So, it's always a good idea to check if it is in great condition. There are several levels of conditions that can be found on eBay. That can be found. No condition at all. A poor condition. Great condition. And then there's excellent condition. Then there are a couple ways you can try to, excellent condition. Plus there's the new condition. Brand new. Factory sealed. And that's the best condition you can ever get. Now, you can get an iPod Touch for a reasonable price that is in good condition, and yet you don't really have to worry about it being broken or something. Now, if it has a cracked screen, it's either because the user wasn't careful and dropped it, or it's because the user just didn't really care about it and just left it for someone to step on or let it run over or whatever. But you never know about the iPod. You never know. So, what is an iPod generally used for? Apple made the iPod specifically for listening to music. Some calendars were added so you can set a date on the calendar. And you can probably play a couple of games on there, and that's about it. On the iPod Touch, it added more features like messaging people. And that's one thing. On an iPod, like on the older iPods, you don't need to sign into iCloud to do the messaging and stuff like you can on older devices. So, I think that's about it, guys. Like I said, what generation iPad stopped at the update iOS 9.3.5? Leave that question in the comments below. Leave your answer in the comments below. Please tell me. If you're not computer savvy, then look it up and then put the answer. You don't really have to know it. It's just a question because I'm wondering. Because there's one lying around somewhere and I don't know where it's at. And I was going to do a review on it until somebody told me, hey, You have to get off. Oh, by the way, speaking of getting off of stuff, a little bit of throwback. If you're an 80s, if you were an 80s kid, which I wasn't, do you remember getting on the computer and your mom saying, "Get off, I need to use the phone"? Yeah. Well, for an 80s kid, that would be something like, "Oh no, I'm on the computer." Well, I guess that was back in the 90s when they had internet. Shoot, forgot. But anyways, guys, I'm done. Goodbye.